Welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today I got a real treat for you. His name is Gerry Vasquez, and he is the Water Quality and Systems Lead Operator for the City of Southgate in California. Gerry, say what's up to everybody.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me on.
For sure, man, for sure. So let's talk about Water Quality and Systems Lead Operator. I love vague titles because they don't quite tell exactly what you do, especially to the untrained eye. So give us kind of the 30,000-foot view of what a water quality and system lead operator does and is.
Well, basically, I want to start off with the lead part. So I'm kind of the lead pump operator here as far as our production side. So I make sure that all my guys are taken care of with whatever they need. As far as the water quality, I mean, it's kind of in the name in itself. I make sure that, our water quality is taken care of as far as samples, our, with regulatory agencies, stuff like that. I also make sure that any customer issues that we might encounter, with, not understanding with certain things, I take customer complaints, not complaints, but like issues very seriously. So that's kind of where I'm at.
For sure. And then give the listeners kind of a brief scope of what city. I've never heard of City of Southgate. I'm from California. I've never heard of Southgate. Kind of give us, I don't know, maybe population, amount of pipe, lift stations. You kind of give us the scope of what Southgate looks like.
So, City of Southgate is just about 11 miles southeast of downtown LA. So it's kind of its own little hub here. It's the southeast Los Angeles area, and there's a lot of little cities here. Cities like Bell, Linwood, Huntington Park. So we're all kind of in this one area. It was incorporated back in 1923, so it's got a real rich history here. It was really kind of after World War II. A lot of factories started popping up here. We had one of the original Firestone tire plants here, which some of the buildings still is standing, which is very cool. Built things that they built back then, kind of they don't make it the same way. But anyway, so yeah, we have a Firestone Boulevard that was named after that. We also had a General Motors plant here. So it was, from the start of it, it was a real blue collar town or city that these people from the war that came back and wanted to settle and just start their families, this is where they came from. It was all brand new, and sticking with the blue collar, I think that still resonates even till today. Working class families, they all live here, and it's very the demographics changed a little bit. Now it's predominantly Hispanic, Latino. I would say like 95% of the residents here. So, but like I said, great community. Everybody's, they're hardworking families, and we approximately have about 89 residents here. It's dense, heavily dense here. 7.2 something like that square mile range. A lot of traffic, a lot of people. But we all try to get things going around here.
Yeah, for sure. Now I like the picture you painted of Southgate, man. Gotta come check it out. Give us the day in the life of Gerry Vasquez. You show up to work on a random Tuesday. Kind of walk us through what you do from the time you get to the office to the time you leave.
Well, I like to show up early. Kind of might be a little cliche. Be the first one here and the last one to leave. But honestly, I do it more because I hate coming in and like, I got to punch in and get stuff. No, it's like I come in on time. I mean, I come in before everybody else shows up, and it's kind of relaxing, ease into your emails, take care of things. So that gives me kind of a head start on things. And basically, we'll head over to our morning meeting area, and we'll just kind of have like a tailgate, amongst our division, the water division. Talk about any issues that's going on, any tasks or projects that are going on, stuff like that, just so everybody's on the same page. Our water division, we split it up in the production side and the distro side. So, the distro guys will let us know what they're working on, and the production guys will let them know what we're working on. And just, I think if everybody is on the same page, we all know what's going on, and we can help run this water system, smoothly and make sure everything's running properly. So after our morning meeting, I'll come back into my office, check all SCADA, make sure everything's operating right, pumps, then we'll check. Me personally, I have to go through emails. So I start going through emails, man. Ever since I got this position, it's like,
Don't
that's one
do
of the
it.
things. Yeah, that's one of the things that, not that it took a while to take, but I was more of a field guy. So I was always out, hey, let's go do this. Now it's more like I still want to be on the field, but I have to do what I got to do here first in the office. So I'll take care of that. I handle a lot of calls, whether it's from other coworkers, employees, to customers. They'll forward over a call to me. Hey, this customer has a question about this and that. So that's kind of my morning routine, taking care of all that. And then sometime after lunch, I'm pretty much done with all my office work. Making sure that all my paperwork's taken care of. Then I'll head out to the field. I'll check in with my 2 pump operators. Hey, is there anything you guys want me to go check out? Can we work on? We'll make some repairs, stuff like that. I'm also currently the cross connection specialist here. So I'll go check out on, the backflows and trying to make sure everything's running right. Being that we're kind of an urban area, we're having a big, heavy burden on copper theft and the backflows and all that. So that's kind of another thing for another podcast. But so yeah, having to keep up with that and making sure that everything's running smooth. So and then a lot of meetings also. So trying to stay organized and trying to stay on schedule, and hey, I got to make time for this meeting, I'll be back. And so that's pretty much my day.
Yeah. Give us the Gerry's career path, your trajectory. I want to know what you did all the way from high school all the way up until today, because somebody listening to this episode might go, he's the lead operator now. I want to be the lead operator one day. What path should I take to be the Gerry Vasquez one day?
Well, for starters, I just want to say I'm not from the LA area. Not that I have nothing against it, but my journey began in the Inland Empire, Riverside, California, which is 55 miles roughly east of Los Angeles. So I started out there, went to high school. I wasn't born there, but I grew up there. But started off in high school, I felt like the school, they pushed a lot of going to college, getting your bachelor's, master's, whatever, right? And so, yeah, I was all for it, but I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. My parents, they didn't go to college, so I didn't really have, I'm the oldest of 3. I didn't really have any like guidance or anything, besides my teachers and stuff. So, I try to keep, I was a decent student. But again, I always like, well, it was more like, well, I have to do this so I can go to a school, but yet I don't know what I want to do. So I was kind of in that limbo. So long story short, I graduated. Then I just ventured off to community college. So again, just kind of like, hey, this is what the next step is, right? So maybe I'll find out what I want to do there. At the same time, I was working a lot of these little jobs here and there, because as a young fresh out of high school graduate, you want to have some cash in your pocket. So I would just do these random jobs like here and there and work different places. I remember one job, I worked for FedEx as what they called a package handler. This is pretty neat. So me and another buddy of mine that went to college with me, we would go into this warehouse, FedEx warehouse, like at 4 a.m, and we would work from 4 to 6 just to unload the like shipments, the trailers that came in from wherever they flew in from, and we would just literally unload the trucks, put it on the right pallets, so that the FedEx guys, they would take off. So like I said, it was literally like 2-3 hours tops. So, and then from there, 6 a.m, we're heading off to class. So we'd go. So I had like a full day. So that's around, I graduated 2006. So 2008 is when we had that big recession, right? So when like people are losing their jobs, people are starting to lose their homes, it was real serious. Thankfully my parents, they were good. But I started noticing other families. I'm like, man, what's going on? What is this as a kid, right? So that kind of got me thinking like, I need something stable, right? So like I ended up at the time I was dating this girl, and we would go over to her uncle's house to visit him. And I remember going to his house, and he was a real cool guy. And I remember him, we'd pull up, he had a nice house, he had a nice truck in the driveway, a boat. And I'm thinking, wait, what's going on here? Like there's a recession, and yet this guy,
Right.
he's doing good. He's doing good for himself.
Yeah.
Right. So I asked the girl that I was dating at the time. I said, hey, what does your uncle do? And I remember she was, I don't know, he works for the city or something. So that was her response. She goes, you should ask him. I'm like, all right. So literally that day, we were talking. I'm like, hey, what do you do? And he flat out tells me, oh, I work for the water department for the city of Riverside, public utilities. And he's like, I'm a foreman. And all these words are like brand new to me. Like I have no idea what he's talking about. Like,
Yeah.
what is that? And so that got my curiosity. And so before he kind of pointed me in the right direction, so to speak, I remember him saying something that stuck with me even to this day. And I kind of still pass that on. He goes, you need to get into something that people can't live without. He goes, whether it's water, whether it's gas, whether it's electricity. So basically like utilities, like basic utilities, those jobs they'll never go away. Right. So that sparked my interest. So I'm like, well, how do I do what you're doing? Right. So he goes, oh, you need to go to this school. You need to pass this state exam and get this cert. And when you get all that, come see me. So I head over to San Bernardino Valley College. I take courses like he told me. Within a year, I get my D1 and my T2, my D1 and my T1. So then by that time, I'm like, cool. He said to come see him, but I broke up with the girl at the time. So I'm like,
no, Gerry, what are you
work,
doing,
right?
man?
Bad, right. But I'm a firm believer on, things need to happen because they need to happen. This is the way it was meant to be. So the way I see it is like I was supposed to date her in order to meet her uncle so that way I can get in this field, right? It's all like a chain effect. So anyways, I have my certs. Now I'm like, okay, I'm on my own. Like, let's start applying. So this is around 2010, beginning of 2011. So I'm just applying. Back then it was more like you would fill out the application, you go drop it off, right? So in schools, at school, they would tell us, go and drop it in personally, all this. So I just started applying, and I kept getting rejection letters. And I was like, man, it was like kind of devastating because, this young kid that you're ambitious and you're trying to, get your foot in the door, but they kept telling you like, sorry, we decided to go with somebody with more experience. And I just kept hearing that. So I was like, man, it was like, what else do I need to do? Right. I remember this one instance that happened. And it also changed kind of my view on things. So back then I was still living at home with my parents, and it just so happened that our service line for our house was leaking in the street. So the utility water department, they show up, and I'm going, whoa, this is awesome. Like, this is my chance. I'm going to go over there and introduce myself, right? I'm like, I'm going to school. I have my certs. Like, cool. Maybe they'll give me a shot, right? So I walk over to the guy. I'm like, who looks important, right? Like, who's the foreman here, right?
Right. That's always
so this guy's standing out here on the sidewalk. So I go to him, and he sees me walking up to him, and I extend my hand out, and I'm like, hey, my name is Gerry Vasquez. I'm going to school for water. Is there any advice you can give me? Or, and he literally just looks at me, and he goes, yeah, so. And I didn't know, I didn't know what to say. I'm like, really? And there's another like worker standing next to him, and I could tell he felt bad for me. And he just kind of laughed, but at the same time, he was like, hey man, like it's, just keep working, keep putting in this applications, you'll get a job, right? But what the other guy did to me, the fact that he just didn't care, like that stuck with me. And at that moment I said, you know what? I'm never going to be like that guy. If somebody's,
Amen.
brave enough to come and, and reach out and, hey, any advice, of course I'm going to give you some advice. Of course I'm going to help out, give a helping hand, whatever I can do. Right. So those are just little things that kind of molded me into the guy I am now.
Yeah.
So finally, I'm like, what do I got to do? Right. So I worked construction a little bit to try to help out with, because they wanted experience. So I did some concrete cutting. Right. So I worked on that. And then finally around 2013, it was 13 to 15, I ended up getting hired with a small mutual water company called Cedar Pines Mutual Water Company, which is located up in the San Bernardino Mountains, right next to Crestline. Best thing that ever happened to me.
Really?
Yeah, because being that it was such a small little agency, not only was I able to get my feet wet, but I was able to learn the whole entire system, meaning I did the distribution side, repairing mains, meter reading, water production, keeping up with the pumps. I just did everything. And it was at a smaller scale that allowed me to kind of take my time with things, not that it wasn't so serious, but at the same time, it was at a more smaller level. So great entry level. As a matter of fact, even today, when other students kind of ask for advice because they're having trouble getting into an agency, look at these smaller agencies, mutual water companies, small little private sectors, something small to get your feet in.
Yeah.
So like I said, great place to start off with. Then I ended up meeting what is now my wife. Tailgate. I went to a USC and UCLA football game.
Okay.
Go Trojans.
What year was this? Was this Leinart Bush
like,
or
this
after?
is like 2014. So I'm still working at Cedar Pines. Yeah. This is 2014. So I meet her at this tailgate. We start talking. We start dating. Then it gets to this point where like, oh, this girl's, I'm serious with her, right? Like, and commuting back and forth from San Bernardino County, because she lived in Montebello, which is LA, back and forth. I'm like, I can't do this. So hopped on the applications and I just started applying anywhere in LA, anywhere. So it's funny that you said, I don't know where Southgate is. Neither did I. I did not know where Southgate was. I was like, so when I went on governmentjobs.com, just started applying all these places, and then Southgate was hiring. So I'm like, Southgate, right? So I submitted an application. They give me a call back for an interview. I ended up getting hired. And I started there in 2015, like November 2015. So just a little over 10 years that I've been here. So I started as a distribution operator there, kind of made my way up. But I always had that treatment or production side experience from my other position, and I would always express that because I always felt like that's where I wanted to be. It's just something about the water production and the pumps and all that. It's something that I really enjoyed. So I always kind of voiced my opinion throughout my whole time here at Southgate. And once they kind of got wind that, all right, so you kind of do know what's going on, they would kind of cross-train me and they would kind of substitute me here and there. Like when some of the guys from the production side would take vacation, hey, so-and-so is going on a vacation for a week. You want to substitute for him? Sure. Yeah. Like, let's do it. So that essentially helped me to land what then became my production. So in 2022, I became a pump operator. So because of that experience, some retirement happened and I was able to shift over in there. And then, so from the pump operator position, some more retirements came upon. I started going back to school and getting more certs and getting more serious with this production side and everything. And, kind of just started working my way up. And now I'm the water quality and systems lead operator for City of Southgate. It's kind of a long
Love it.
story, but that's how I got here.
No, I mean, to be honest, I like the story because how many of us in our lives have made those types of decisions, whether it's a girl or, somebody that put a chip on your shoulder, those little instances happen to all of us in life.
Yeah.
And what you did from it was admirable because you use those as motivation. You use them to get to the next place to where you wanted to be. So I appreciate the story. Give us kind of a rundown of how it was to go from the field to the office, because not everybody, I think most of us want to make that switch. Sometimes we might not be ready yet. Sometimes we bite off more than we can chew. But what was that transition like from being in the field to now, emails and meetings all day?
The transition at first, I felt it more once I became the water quality specialist, because when I was the pump operator, I still did some office work, but I was mostly out in the field. So I didn't feel it till I became in this position. And it was something where I felt I needed, not that I wasn't organized, but you need to be more organized. Like you need to make sure you have everything on schedule. Everything's written down, on your Google calendars or on your calendar here on the wall, which was something that I felt I needed a little bit of work on. So I spent kind of some time trying to focus on what worked best for me, because certain people do things a certain way, or they give you advice for this, but maybe that works for them, but not necessarily for me. So I'm more pen and paper. Not that I don't like, things written down on the computer. I like the alerts, but if I'm visually seeing it, like I have a calendar right in front of my desk here, Monday through Sunday, I have written down, on Monday, I'll write everything down, meetings, stuff like that. Or as calls come in, certain things like that, schedules, I write them down just because I want to stay on top of it. Last thing you want is to miss a meeting or miss that crucial connection with somebody. So that was one of the big things that I felt a little challenging at the beginning, but having the support here with the staff, my supervisor and the water manager, they're always either a phone call away, or I could just go to their office, and they're kind of helping me out tremendously. So it was a little bit of getting used to, but I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. What would you say is the main skill set that somebody should pick up to be the best water quality and systems lead operators they can be?
I would say two things. Communication. Communication is big. I guess this is coming from my personal experience. I like to make sure that I have a good communication with everybody. I'm a people's person. So meaning, if I want an answer, I'll just go to that person and ask them, instead of sending an email, which I'll still do. But once I build this, I feel like once I build this communication or this relationship with this person, I feel now we're on a one-to-one basis. So even if I were to send an email, oh yeah, it's Gerry. Here, let me send him the reply now. He's a good guy, at least that's what I think.
Right.
But
no, you're right. Yeah.
But so communication is big. Another thing is just making sure that you're on top of whatever is on the table, because in this water industry, you can have your day planned, but things pop up and it's like, oh crap, now what do we do? Like, let's go here, let's do, everybody, let's get together, let's talk about how we're gonna figure this out. Or so you kind of don't know what your day is gonna look like. So just making sure that you have all the proper materials, all the proper staff, whatever it could be, just so when things hit the fan, you're not so much non-prepared, but you can, all right, let's assess the situation and let's take care of it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, story time. I need a story from Gerry when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Well, we don't really like to talk about our faults.
Come on.
But I guess one big learning experience that happened to me, or under my watch, um, once I got this position, I'm still kind of learning the whole scope of it and trying to settle in. So being that I moved up from a pump operator to this now lead position, we were able to get somebody else to cross train and to fill that other position in the meantime before it, permanently got taken over. So I think it was, yeah, it was a holiday. It was a Monday, and that person was, we rotate here on a weekly basis as far as monthly sample. I mean, on call. I'm sorry. So it was that guy's turn to be on call for that week. So being that we were off on that Monday, I guess we all assumed he was going to take the sample, even though he wasn't scheduled to take the sample. And then the guy that was scheduled to take the sample, he assumed that the guy on call was going to take the sample since he's coming in. And again, I'm kind of got my nose dived here, whatever in the office I got to do and other projects. So that was one of the things where I dropped the ball. I kind of just assumed that they were going to take care of it, right? So I didn't end up finding out till at the end of the month when it's time to do the monthly report, and I'm going through all my monthly samples, and then where's this one sample that's missing, right? And then my heart just dropped because I'm like, whoa, like we missed a sample. How could I let this happen, right? So what else can you do but take ownership, full responsibility? So, I walked over with my tail between my legs to water manager, and I just told him, hey, we missed a sample. I already got in contact with the lab. We're going to go ahead and take it. I'm going to send out a email to our survey engineer with the state, let them know what happened. But one good thing that came out of that was the fact that, it kind of restructured a little bit the protocol, which I was able to be a part of, which, now it's kind of the way I want things done. And obviously amongst the managers too, but, now we are implementing new structures, which is working out great. So that was kind of a lesson learned, and we kind of ended up, getting a better structure. So that was an incident that happened.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. All right. So how does Gerry get better and better year after year? You've been doing this for over a decade. You could easily say, I know everything, or I've seen it all, I've been through it all. But what keeps you motivated to keep learning it? And then what's your personal and professional development regimen like?
Always trying to stay up with the ever-changing structure and things in this water agency and water quality. With the state, I'm always getting emails with, hey, this new plan and this new thing that's going to happen, and you just trying to stay on top of that because it's like I said, it's evolving. So what I found that I like to do is attending all these different in-person trainings, webinars, the conferences, just being engaged with that. It's kind of giving me a firsthand look at what's going on, what are the changes coming up, trying to stay informed. So that I felt helped me out a lot. And I was last year I was able to attend the Water Conference of the West, AWWA's, here in the city of Anaheim. It was great because that was kind of the first time I got to experience the wholeness of it, I guess you'd say. I ended up joining a committee there, Young Professionals Committee, which was great. That also helped me, not only in my professional life, but in my personal life too, kind of to grow, get out of your comfort zone, take, risks and opportunities when at hand. So from that, been attending all these meetings throughout the year, and they reached out and they said, does anybody want to speak for this year's? So I don't know what it was. Something inside me said, yeah, let's do it. Like, hey, I don't mind talking. So I'll actually be speaking at one of the small tech sessions at this year's water conference, which will be in San Diego. I'll be talking about backflow devices, backflow assemblies. So, it's something like that 5-6 years ago, I would have never done. but being in this new role and being in this new position, I feel these are things that are going to help me grow and help me be an overall better lead, um, and just overall person.
Yeah, yeah. What do you say to those out there who are like, man, I'm just trying to, get my certs, keep my head down, make my money, go home, and not really like join the committees or the associations or do any of that stuff? Like, what do you say to them to get more involved?
I mean, you got to present it to them, but you can't force anybody. I know a lot of guys that, they come in and they put their hard 10-hour days and then they want to go home with their families, which is good. It's all good. I'm not going to hate for that, but, still offering it to them, still showing them, because maybe a lot of times they don't know. I was that guy once where, what's a water conference? What is this? Maybe just nobody really explained it or showed it to them, right? So once you explain it and show it to them, maybe it'll spark an interest, and yeah, that sounds interesting. It'll change their mindset. So yeah, basically that's another thing I try to do here. As far as middle management, leadership, I try to voice these webinars and these events, and hey, is this something you're interested in? This came across my computer, and I think you would benefit from it. No, that's fine. Or yeah, you know what, how can we make this work? Like, hey, leave that to me. I'll talk to whoever I need to talk to. We'll get you signed up. Let's go for it. So yeah, just as showing it to them and displaying it. And from what I've learned, there's a lot of events, a lot of programs, a lot of good
Yeah.
benefits out there. And I didn't know about all that. So the more you get into it, the more you start building relationships with other people, with yourself, just things like that. So that's a real taker right there.
No, for sure. I appreciate that. I feel like our best and brightest, or some of our best and brightest, are focused on aging infrastructure in our industry. The old pipes underground, the old pumps, like, these things need to be replaced. I like to focus on the aging workforce of our industry, those who've been around for decades and they're retiring. And we need to get more people in the industry that are, from 18 to 30, 18 to 35. What do you say to those, whether it's high school, junior college? What do you say to those who are kind of like, trying to figure it out in life? They don't want to go to the services. They don't want to go to college, but they want a career where they can be proud of something that they do. What do you say to them or what are your best practices to at least find those types of people to get them in our industry?
Again, just showing them, I want to say I want to be, or I play a big advocate for trying to, advocate for what I do and what this career, what this industry does for our communities. The public works sector, water division, we have a big job and an obligation to provide services to our community. So I would say if we reach out to the local high schools, the local schools, and just explain to them what we do and how they can, if they're interested, how they can get into it, I think we would get a lot of people, because like I said before, I was that one guy that just was kind of lost in high school, didn't, as far as career wise, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And if somebody would have came to my high school classroom and said, hey, I'm so-and-so, I work for this public works or this agency, we work on this kind of water stuff, and I think I would have got in sooner. I would have,
Really? Yeah.
so I think just showing the students or the younger generation, exposing them to that's something that I think would do a big interest. I have a lot of acquaintances and old friends that, they reach out to me and they're like, hey, like, you seem like you're doing pretty well. Like, what do you do? How did you get into that?
Yeah.
And I kind of tell them my whole story, and they're like, man, that's good. Like, I didn't know that. Like, well, now you do, So
No, for sure.
yeah, just exposing what we do to the community. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's half the battle. A lot of people don't know what happens or what's being done, by people in the industry. So what would you say is the biggest misconception about what you do? Like, let's say you're at a dinner party, and of course the question always comes up. So, Jerry, what do you do? And you tell them, I'm the water quality and systems lead operator for the city of Southgate. What do you think they think when you tell them that?
Well, when I always, let's see, how could I word this without making it sound kind of, so, since I work for a city, as at least here, I always, oh, you work for a city? Oh, must be cake, right? But it's more than that. Oh, trust me, if I could just sit in my truck all day, I would. Not that I would, but no,
I'm
honestly,
with you.
like I feel like the misconception is like, oh, he's a city worker, he's got it
Yeah.
good, but we're basically on call 24/7, and that's what people don't understand. They talk about first responders, fire department, PD. We're also the first responders. There's a water main break. Boom, we're the first ones to show up. We're the last ones to leave. A tree falls down. Who are you gonna call? There's a sewer backup. The sewer department's out there. It doesn't matter if it's Thanksgiving, if it's Christmas. We're on call 24/7. So for people to think that we're not doing anything, that's a misconception right there. Just something on personal level. I remember when I first moved over to the pump operator side, I was on call during the New Year's. So it was so weird the way it happened. Being a little paranoid, kind of first time being on call on the production side, you're kind of like, oh, is everything running okay? Always checking SCADA. And I remember we start doing the countdown for New Year's, and I kid you not, maybe like 10 minutes after we did the countdown, boom, I get an alert from my phone, pumps down. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I told my wife, and she knows the name of the game. Like, hey, we gotta go. So, we're always there to provide for our community, to provide these services. And I hope people can understand that. And maybe we should try harder to advocate for what we do and show and express to the community, which that way that'll give them better understanding of what we do. But as far as for my position, water quality, I like to tell them like, hey, I'm constantly dealing with water quality issues, water sampling. And a lot of the times these issues, I don't want to call them issues, but these things that pop up with like our water, all it takes is like either phone call with the customer or actually going in person. And once you explain to them what's going on, it's like, oh yeah, it's not that bad. One thing I'd like to share is here in the city of Southgate, since we're so dense, there's so many people, a lot of heavy traffic, we get a lot of hit hydrants here, like a lot of hit hydrants.
Really, that's a thing?
Yeah, it is a thing. We used to
like more than the next city over?
Oh
or
man,
is it?
tell me about it. I don't know. I have a buddy, one of my coworkers, he lives in the city of Long Beach, and I asked him, I said, Long Beach is pretty big. Where do you feel has worse drivers, Southgate or Long Beach? He goes, Southgate for sure.
Really? Wow.
But we would like to joke and say, hey, when you're on call, hey, it's not if you're gonna get a hit hydrant, it's when you're gonna get a hit hydrant.
Really?
Because it's coming.
No way. Wow.
But yeah, talking to the customers like, hey, listen, you experience some discoloration in your water because around this time there was a hit hydrant near your house that disrupted the water main, kind of stirred it up, and oh yeah, that's where all that water was coming from. So like again, once you start talking to the customer and building that relationship, it's good.
Yeah. You got to talk to my guy, Jesse Anderson, the hydrant guard guy. It's funny. Whenever I think of a hit hydrant and the big plume, the big water plume, I think of him. So,
Okay.
All right. Let's say you're commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Southgate. What ask of your community would you put on this billboard in regards to water?
I would say, I don't know how to say it, but I would say, hey, take a look at your CCR, your Consumer Confidence Report. I feel that if people were more aware as far as how their water quality is, knowing how to read it, which is something that we could, give me a call or we can show you. Our water meets all regulatory standards. It's good, again, going back to those hit hydrants, since we get a lot, the discoloration of the water, people start kind of thinking that the water is not somehow safe. So I feel that, showing proof or having that conversation with them, hey, read your CCR, or, let's set up a workshop. We can show you how to read the CCR. It'll show you that everything's good. So, somehow expressing on a billboard, the consumer conference report, let's meet and talk about it, something like that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. I always like to leave a show for you to think of mentors that you had along your journey. And then I want you to give a word of inspiration and motivation to your fellow, let's say, water quality counterparts across the country.
Okay. I don't know, might be cliche, but first I want to start off with my parents. Hispanic culture, we kind of just hardworking Hispanics that, came to this country for a better life for their sons and daughters. And just growing up and watching my parents go to work every day, kind of instilled that work ethic in me. I like to tell my dad's story. He retired from Republic Disposal Services, which is the waste management for the city of Anaheim. Yeah, he did 45 years there. He said, he said that company changed names 3 times. So meaning like he was there, he was one of the OGs. And what I mean is the way he started, he said that his neighbor or buddy of his was like, hey, come on, like we'll try to get you in. And I guess when that company first started, they had like a bench at the entry of the exit where the trucks would come out for their day. And I guess the drivers would just pick one of the guys, like, hey, you come with me, kid. So that's how my dad started, right?
Oh,
he would just show up every day, till he got, on a truck. Then he got his own truck, and then from there. But what I want to say is, the fact that he would just show up every day, that's I take that from him. Show up every day. You don't know what the day's gonna hand you, and you just gotta show up and take care of business. Another mentor is Randy Gomez. Rest in peace. We just lost him last year, but he was one of our co-workers here that retired. But when I started here, kind of took me under his wing. I drive him everywhere, but he was kind of my mentor, throughout those 6-7 years on the distro side. He kind of showed me how to be a good operator, in the sense that things are going to happen, and there's no don't panic. He had this saying, like, hey, don't panic, Hispanic. Like, keep calm, keep your cool, because if you start panicking, that's not going to help. So whatever the situation is, let's think about it, let's take care of it. And I always just remember his way of working, and just it's going to get done, don't worry about it, like let's take one thing at a time and we'll get it done. And I've kind of implemented that throughout my career, and it's been going good. So yeah, shout outs to him. The last person is Steve Hernandez from Waterwise Pro.
Steve?
Oh, okay, yeah.
If
you guys haven't heard of him, he's the water guru.
Yeah.
So this guy, I started taking his classes like way back when, right? His prep course, test prep course classes, and just his story and his motivation that he would, push out, and just something that gravitated, not only me, but a bunch of guys, kind of just, it kind of pumps you out. I feel like his courses and classes are not so much, teaching you about, get that next cert, which it is, but it's more like it pumps you up, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to get this. Like, we're going to go out there and we're going to push, and, we're going to level up. And so I've always seen them, and just throughout the years, I built a relationship with them, and kind of just, we text and email, and hey, how's it going? Everything's good. And so I take a lot of his, helping others, and I take a lot from that, and I try to implement it on my professional life. And same thing, the young guys that come in here, like I said, what you guys need something, come to me. My door's always open. The last thing you need is another operator that's like wants to pigeonhole everything and doesn't want to share anything. And
yeah.
Yeah,
For sure. Okay. All right, man. Most important question. Let's say I'm coming to Southgate. I text you ahead of time. I say, Gerry, where can I go to get the best burger in Southgate? Where are you going to send me?
Burgers. I don't think I'm going to go with burgers.
You said 90% Hispanic. Come on.
So, real quick, one thing when I came to the city, I noticed two things. I said, there's a lot of barbershops and a lot of mariscos.
Okay.
So we're going to go with mariscos here. Seafood. There's a real good place. It's kind of borderline Linwood, Southgate. We like to say it's on the Southgate side. But Mariscos El Viejon, really, really good. I mean, if you want some ceviche, aguachiles, shrimp, whatever, go to that place. They have these tacos. And at first when you hear like it's carne asada and shrimp cooked in with cheese, and you're like, what? But man, they're delicious. Throw some salsa on there, they're good.
Okay.
Some of the guys we like to go there like on a Thursday or something in the afternoon. It's kind of like our tradition. Hey, let's go there for lunch. But so yeah, I would take you, or I recommend Mariscos El Viejon.
El Viejon?
El Viejon, yeah.
Okay. El Viejon. Perfect. All right. Gerry, thanks for hopping on the show today. Thanks for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge with us. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Gerry, any final words before we get out of here?
You know what? If you're trying to move up in your career and you're kind of timid as far as should I take that next step, I would say there's a saying I like to go by, or quote, be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's the only way you'll grow. So don't be scared to take that next step, make that next move, because that could be the one thing you need to do in order to push your career forward. So
for sure. Thanks for sharing that. For sure. All right, Gerry, this has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you everybody for tuning in.
All right.